What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Kruger, surprised with new topics every single week and jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC. We're fresh off of the best card of the entire year. That is right, UFC Seattle was hands down not only the best fight night, I could even argue it's been better than the 3 pay-per-views we've had. It was fantastic, it had finishes, it had good fights, and it was exciting and spontaneous. So we're going to be breaking down everything that went down on UFC Seattle. We went 8-4. On predictions. There were 13 fights. We went 8-4. There was a draw, which we'll discuss, but it was a very solid card. There were, a couple upset winners who won here and there. We didn't do a parlay this time. I don't think it would have hit anyways, but who knows? So we have a whole breakdown of that. And also, we're going to be discussing the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, as I've watched every single game so far. And we now have our final 4 teams in March Madness. And this last game that just happened may have been one of the best games and probably the best comeback of the tournament so far. So hands down, ladies and gentlemen, I should say, we are just in a hectic time of the year. This is when stuff starts piling up. This is where stuff gets exciting, and I look forward to discussing everything on today's episode. Now, what I did want to kick things off with is just a couple new fight announcements that we have. There has not really been that many, if I'm being honest. There's quite honestly been, 6 new fights announced, not even, and none of them are really of any notoriety, but just, of course, to discuss the new UFC fights that have been coming out here. So, for starters, the first new fight that we have announced is between Ray Tezura and Jesus Aguilar. Ray Tezura bouncing back from his first career loss to Tatsuro. Actually, no, it was to Joshua Van, I'm pretty sure, so that win has aged pretty good. He's taking on Jesus Aguilar, who's gone 4-3 in the UFC, hasn't really done much. They'll be squaring off at UFC Macau in China on May 30th. Should be an interesting flyweight matchup. As well, a fight for UFC 327 on April 11th in the welterweight division. Carlos Radke is back to take on Francisco Prado. Both of these guys in desperate need of a victory, especially, let me say, Francisco Prado, who is somehow 1-4 and has only been fighting killer. So I definitely expect very highly of him. We'll see how he ends up performing. A matchup for UFC Vegas 118 on June 6th. We're going to be having Jordan Leavitt versus Joe Henderson Brito. A battle of the Joes, one could say. Joe Henderson Brito's gone 6-3 in the UFC. Actually holds a win over Diego Lopez. And as for Jordan Leavitt, he's gone 6-3. And I'm pretty sure recently picked up a win over Yadir Del Valle in shocking fashion at UFC 324. So should be an interesting matchup there for the featherweight division. I lean more so on Brito for the feet and Leavitt for the ground game. So we'll see out of those two styles who prevails. Another matchup for you, this one for UFC Vegas 117 on May 16th. It'll be Tuco Tucos. Tuco is back. His first name's actually George, but he goes as Tuco Tucos. Holds a win over Junior Tafa, his only win in the UFC. He is from England, Greece, and Brazil. He is, his nationality is all over the place. And he actually has held titles in 2 different promotions, but so far in the UFC has just been kind of whatever. He'll be taking on Ivan Erzlan, who is 0-3 in the UFC and quite literally has only been fighting high-level fighters. So I'm excited to see that one. I'm probably going to lean on Ivan Erzlan, but we'll have to see what ends up happening with that one. The newest fight announced actually today on March 29th as Ketlin Souza is back, the former Invicta FC champion who has since come into the UFC and gone 3-3. Biggest win is probably over Yasmin Jaraguay. Takes on Arnie Carnelossi, and Arnie Carnelossi has also gone 3-3 in the UFC, and this is actually a rematch between the two that Arnie Carnelossi had actually gotten the better of Souza back in the Invicta FC days. So we'll see what happens there. Should be entertaining. And then the final fight I have to announce to you guys. I'm just staying up to date, but there hasn't been any big fight announcements. UFC Vegas 116 on April 25th as a heavyweight matchup as Max Himez and Marcus Buchechka look to bounce back from their 2 lackluster fights so far in the UFC. Look, the heavyweights, man. The heavyweights have just not been delivering. We're going to talk about some heavyweight action on today's event recap, but just not the most exciting. All right, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the heavyweight division is in need of an exciting fighter, so anyone who's going to come in, who's going to bring it, who's going to bring intensity, they're going to take over. So in terms of that fight, I expect very little of both of those guys. We are just in need of a new Francis Ngannou to make his debut and kind of make a staple. So we'll see what happens, but those are a bunch of lower-level new UFC fights. None of them are ranked fighters. None of them have much notoriety, but now we all know that there are new UFC fights out there and about, and we're staying up to date on them. And I'll tell you what else you should be staying up to date on, and that is your March Madness action, as oh my goodness, madness indeed. So we had a number of games to discuss today with you guys. So, of course, we have the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. Over the last 4 days, we've seen a lot of fun action, and we now know the 4 teams that will be in the Final Four. So let's dive in and discuss who has made it to the Final Four in this year's March Madness tournament. Kicking off the Sweet 16 here, I mean, where do we begin even? We had Duke and St. John's. They had a fun game. Friday night, it was lots of fun. Came down to the wire, and Duke actually came out on top 80-75. And, hey, this was close from the get-go. Heading into halftime, St. John's was actually winning. St. John's was actually up to everyone's surprise. And, you know, they had Ejiofor for them, Hopkins, Mitchell all getting double digits. But, you know, Duke is Duke. You know, the Boozers are absolute killers. They combined for 29, including 22 from, I believe it is Cam Boozer. And, of course, Isaiah Evans had 25 points. And Duke ends up walking away with the victory and advanced to the Elite 8. On the other side of the bracket, you had the very anticipated matchup between Arizona and Arkansas, and that was cut very short as quickly. Arizona was the very much more, you know, well-rounded team. They win 109-88, and they only made 5 3-pointers. Crazy. They also made an insane 30 free throws. I could not believe that. Daniel Clough Jr. put up 28 for Arkansas, but it was not enough, as every single starter and one bench player for Arizona puts up double-digit points. Crazy work, if you ask me. I mean, just a well-rounded team, top to bottom. They're a number 1 seed for that reason. So for the first 2 games there of the Sweet 16, no upsets whatsoever, as expected. Entertaining stuff. Moving on down, you of course had Purdue and Texas would not back down. They were going to war to try and beat Purdue, and it comes down to the final seconds, and Purdue's able to put it in, and Texas just cannot get a good shot to cap it off. Mark, the starting guard for Texas, had 29 points. Crazy work from him. And as for Purdue, 20-point bomb from Kaufman Wren will get it done, as every one of their starters scores double-digit points. Very good stuff. Good stuff for Purdue. Advancing to the Elite 8. They were dominant. They were very dominant in that one, but then Texas would come back. Texas would even up, and it came down all the way to the wire. Very entertaining stuff. The Cinderella run of Texas as the play-in team ends in the Sweet 16, but it was good. You know, you knock off BYU, knock off Gonzaga. I wouldn't hurt yourself too much, Texas. You did a decent job. Then dropping on down, we had Iowa and Nebraska, and the Cinderella run of Iowa continued into the Elite 8 as they defeat Nebraska 77-71. It was a good game. Might I say, you know, they played so well, so well-rounded, and at the end of the day, they just edged out Nebraska. Nebraska, first wins of the year, or first tournament wins ever this year, winning 2 games, knocking off Troy and Vanderbilt. I wouldn't knock yourself too much, but Iowa, they were just the Cinderella team this year, making it to the Elite 8, having a crazy performance, and the Nebraska win was very good. Listen to the resume for Iowa this year. Clemson, Florida, Nebraska. Not bad whatsoever. So Iowa cementing themselves as elite this year when making it to the Elite 8. Their opponent at the bottom of the bracket, Illinois and Houston. Illinois defeats Houston 65-55. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. Houston just could not put together. They really couldn't. And, you know, as much as E. Sharp, the starting guard for them, tried his hardest with the team high 17 points, it just wasn't enough. And Houston just could never get up on Illinois. They're just always consistently behind by 10 points. With the final score of them winning by 10 points, it makes sense. And Illinois advances into the Elite 8. But, man, Houston, tough going. Houston has always been a consistent team, I'd say more than half of the last decade, and they just cannot win the big one, for goodness sakes. Another run to the Sweet 16, but not to the Elite 8. Checking in with the Midwest, you had Michigan and Bama, and hey, Bama had it close for a bit, but Michigan just pulled away 90-77, closing the game on a heater. Falone, 35 points for Alabama. Wow. Wow, amazing work from that kid. Shoots 6 for 14 from 3, but all fall to the power of the Wolverines as Lendenborg drops 23. Yaxel, such a killer, dude. Such a good player. You even had Kadu dropping a 17-point bomb, and Gale Jr., 16 off the bench. The number 1 seed Michigan making it look easy as they advance to the Elite 8. And they played the winner of Tennessee at Iowa State. And hey, Iowa State, similar to Houston, always a consistent team making it to the March Madness, usually in the Sweet 16. But Tennessee blows them out 76-62. Not even close. Not even close. What can I say? And I did not have Tennessee going this far. None whatsoever. I had the Mountain Round 1. Then if I didn't have a Mountain Round 1, I had a Mountain Round 2. If I didn't have a Mountain Round 2, I had a Mountain Round 3. And they somehow make it to the Elite 8. So shout out to Tennessee. I was sleeping on you. I did not have faith in you, but you make it to the Elite 8, and a good run for them, knocking off Miami, Ohio, knocking off Virginia, and knocking off Iowa State. Excellent work. With that, we got into the Elite 8, and our first Elite game, or Elite 8 game, I should say, was none other than Illinois and Iowa, and Illinois wins 71-59. This was a close game the entire way, down to the final few minutes. And then, obviously, you're going to see they won by 12. That 12 points didn't come until the final 2 minutes. I mean, this was such a close game. And Sturtz, starting guard for Iowa, 24 points, did the best he could. I mean, really, he poured everything he had into this. And at the end of the day, Illinois was just too consistent. They closed it out at the end. Shout out to Stojakovic off the bench with 17 points. Wow, Peja Stojakovic, who doesn't love him? Who doesn't love Peja and his son killing it for Illinois? And that's right, the number 3 seeded Illinois makes it to the Sweet 16. Crazy. What a run for them. Knocking off Penn, knocking off VCU, knocking off Houston, knocking off Iowa. Did they have the easiest run? I don't know. Maybe, but knocking off Houston and Iowa was no easy feat for them. So Illinois in the Final Four, and I currently work in Illinois. So how about that? I must have brought some good luck to Illinois as they'll make it to their first Final Four, and goodness me knows how long. I have no idea. On the other side of things, we had Arizona and Purdue, and oh man, Arizona, yet another game. It was just a blowout, 79-64. They made Purdue look silly out there. They played good defense, they played consistent offense, and they dominate and they win. Nothing to really say here. I mean, just good work from them. 4 of their 5 starters dropped double-digit points, including Karachenkov with 18 and Coy Pete with 20 points, and didn't even shoot too shabby from the 3-point going. I think it was like 5. No, honestly, they didn't shoot that extraordinary from the 3-point line. But yeah, Purdue, you had a good run. You won the Big Ten, but in the end, you just couldn't hang with some of the big dogs once you made it. We should have known when it was a close game against Texas, they would not be able to hang with Zona. And Zona has now won every single one of their games by a minimum of 14 points. Wow, dominant stuff from Zona. Actually, 12 points, I should say. But still, double-digit wins in every single category as they make it to the Final Four. And this is good for them because usually Arizona doesn't make it this far. I always think about that DeAndre Ayton team, which went out in round 2. A lot was expected of that program. They couldn't deliver. Now look at them. A couple years later, Arizona in the Final Four. And they're playing the winner of Michigan and Tennessee, and this was the worst, one of the worst games I've seen. The Wolverines blow out the Volunteers 95-62. It was almost a 30-point lead at halftime. Just not even close. Charles Barkley was so funny. He was saying the Vols shouldn't even go out there. They should just forfeit the game. There's no point even going out there. And at the end of the day, he was freaking right because it was just game over. They doubled how many 3-pointers they made. Michigan made 30 of their points off of 3-pointers. They also outshot them on free throws 27-9, despite having the same number of rebounds with 42 each. And man, Yaxel Lendenborg, 27 points, just been the MVP for Michigan. Going to be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft, I can guarantee you that. And yeah, Michigan, decent run, knocking off Howard, knocking off St. Louis, knocking off Bama, knocking off Tennessee, going on a little SEC purge there over this Sweet 16 and Elite 8 weekend. And look at that, they'll match up with Arizona. I'm looking forward to that game Saturday at 7:54 p.m. Very exciting stuff. Both teams are pretty average when it comes to all of their stats all over the place, but I'm telling you, I like Michigan in that, all right? I think that is going to be the best game of the Final Four weekend. I think even when we look at the championship and our 2 Final Four games, this is going to be the best game. Number 1 seed Michigan, number 1 seed Arizona. I don't know who to root for, if I'm being honest. I make a lot of brackets. Duke was my overall winner, so my official bracket is kind of out there. I won't consider any of my other brackets as my official bracket, but I'll say I predicted a second chance bracket, and as of right now, it's perfect. And if it goes down to UConn and Arizona wins, then I'll win my bracket. But also, I think my best first off bracket, like my best, 63-game bracket, I actually have Michigan winning in that one. So we'll see. But Wolverines versus the Wildcats. I'm picking a Wolverine in that matchup, but should be pretty entertaining. On the other side of things, who was playing Illinois? UConn and Duke. And I'm actually fresh off of coming back from my uncle and aunt's house, where I watched the game, and it was one of the most entertaining games. One of the best comebacks I've seen, and one of the worst collapses of a Duke team I've ever witnessed. I know last year they ran into some issues, but last year wasn't this bad of a collapse. I've never seen the Duke team collapse like this before, as they became the first team ever to be leading by 15-plus points at halftime. Or actually, it might have even been 15-plus points with under 10 minutes or 5 minutes left to choke a lead. And they lose on a game-winning three-pointer, 73-72. Wow, just insane. Just utterly insane. I believe the game winner, do I want to say, was it Mullins? Was it B. Mullins? I can't even remember who hit the freaking game winner, but some young kid, some freshman clearly, and he just pulls up from the logo. I mean, so, obviously there was a 2-point lead. All right, we have a good bucket in there from the Boozer brothers. They get the ball in. It's 72-70. Then we get a turnover from Arizona, or not from Arizona, from UConn. They check the ball in, and here we go. They're up 2. They're literally passing the ball around. The time's going down, and Boozer tries to heave it down court twice, just presume end the game. It gets stolen by UConn, passes to this one kid, passes to Karabon. Karabon clicks it back from the logo, drains a 3, doesn't even move the rim at all. Fantastic. And makes me sad because, I picked Duke. My cousin Ryan, who we've had on the podcast twice before, he's a massive Duke fan. So is my other half of the family. But man, gotta give it to UConn. That program is just building greatness with Dan Hurley. And yes, UConn will advance to take on Illinois. But the signs of Duke's collapse were there. The signs were there. I honestly, from the get-go, you could kind of tell this Duke team was not going to make it. You just kind of got the gist there. I mean, the Siena only beating them by 6. TCU, obviously they won by 23, but they didn't pull away until the end of the game. St. John's barely beat them, and UConn collapsing a 15-point lead, not going to get it done. So UConn will advance it. UConn has obviously had like a battle. I mean, Furman, UCLA, Michigan State, and now Duke, they've earned their spot. So you will have the 2-seeded UConn taking on the 3-seeded Fighting Illini Saturday at 5:09 p.m. So I'll probably tune in for both games. I mean, I'll be at my parents' house heading back to Minnesota for Easter weekend. But, man, just crazy work. Crazy work in this one. Early predictions, I mean, it's got to be UConn and Michigan. In my opinion, UConn and Michigan is going to be the championship game. And when we think about it, that just feels like a championship game, in my opinion. Now, obviously, all these teams are deserving of it. This is going to be fun. But, man, really bummed out on Duke. I thought Duke would have came out of that side, but the other team I thought would have came out of the East would have been UConn. So, not that surprised. In terms of the South, did not have Illinois. Now, for starters, I really thought UNC would win out of that bracket, but I could easily see Illinois winning that. Did not think Illinois would get past Houston. And if Illinois had gone past Houston, I did not have them beating the Florida or maybe even Iowa, but wow, Illinois somehow in the Final Four. For Arizona and Michigan, I mean, Michigan doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I think, if anything, Texas Tech and Alabama I would have been a bit high on, but no one in the bottom half of the Midwest I had going over Michigan. And for Zona, I mean, maybe could have seen an upset with Utah State or Villanova, but turned out to not be the case. Obviously, this Arkansas team was good, and they made them look silly. And, Purdue, Zaga, Texas, there were some good teams there, but all fall to Arizona. So Arizona, Michigan, and UConn, Illinois, one of those 4 teams are going to be winning March Madness. Exciting stuff, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to tune in later in the week to discuss a bit more before the upcoming games on this upcoming weekend. So to wrap up today's episode, we got a full card recap. All right, we're nowhere near done, ladies and gentlemen, of UFC Seattle. Like I said, we went 8-4 on predictions. A lot of fun fights, a lot of spontaneous things going down on this card. I'm excited to dive in and talk about it. Here's your official recap of UFC Seattle. Kicking off the card, we were in the women's strawweight division as we had Alexa Teixeira taking on Bruna Brazil, and it was actually a pretty decent scrap, if I'm being honest. These two went at it right from the get-go. Alexa Teixeira always kind of having the edge on Bruna Brazil. She obviously walks away with the 30-27 unanimous decision, but, Bruna hung in there, ate some big shots she was throwing back, but yeah, at the end of the day, this was just domination from Alexa Teixeira. 73 significant strikes to 37, 137 total strikes to 72, and goes 6 of 11 on takedowns for 9.5 minutes of control time. So very one-sided victory for Alexa, but it's not like Bruna Brazil went out easy. She still was at least attempting to throw stuff. It just wasn't working in her favor. So Alexa Teixeira moved to 3-0 in the UFC, and her win streak is now at 12. She was ranked at number 13. I would be happy bumping her up to 12 since she recently picked up a victory, and we need to give her a big opportunity here. Number 9 ranked Jessica Andrade sitting right there. I'd even go with the number 8 ranked Amanda Lemos. Come on, give her an opportunity of some kind. There's no reason she should have been fighting down in the first place, but here she is getting another dominant victory. Let's reward her with another ranked opponent above her. For Bruna Brazil, this is now 2 straight losses. She's 0-2 in 2026. She's 11-7-1 professionally, and sure, her time has come to an end in the UFC. There's really nothing much left for her to achieve. I just don't see her being able to rebound with the position she's in, and there's a reason Alexa Teixeira was the minus 525 favorite. So for Teixeira, someone in the bottom of the top 10, and for Bruna Brazil, I wish you the best of luck, but I think your time in the UFC has commenced, and you will have to go on to different career adventures. Next up, we had a bantamweight scrap, which was an absolute fun brawl. Ricky Simón and Adrian Yanez ends in a majority decision draw. Very interesting here. Antonio Guerrero, the only one scoring it in favor of Adrian Yanez. Eric Colon and Sal D'Amato giving it 28-28. Now, I believe the 28-28 come from the fact that they scored round 3 at 10-8 for Adrian Yanez, and rounds 1 and 2 went to Ricky Simón. Now, in terms of the whole fight, very close. Round 3 was the most obvious round for Adrian Yanez. He landed 40 significant strikes to 17, landed a knockdown, and defended the 1 takedown from Ricky Simón. Now, round 2, I think, was the clearest round for Ricky Simón. Landed 2 takedowns, had more total strikes, 23-16. And then round 1 was just a toss-up, and it could have gone either man's way. But I really feel like Adrian Yanez probably should have gotten the nod here. Obviously, he's going to walk away unvictorious, but I definitely think everyone can acknowledge he probably won this contest. So for Ricky Simón, this is just another tough fight for him. He's also going to be winless in the last year or so. So we'll have to see what's next for these fellas. But if I have to matchmake them with new opponents going forward, Javid Basharat just picked up a victory over Gianni Vasquez a bit ago, and I think him versus Adrian Yanez would be a fun next step. As for Ricky Simón, there's going to be a lot of names out there, a lot of names from the fight. The bantamweight division is one of the deepest divisions in the UFC. So for Ricky Simón, being that he's 33, gosh, a little torn on who we could maybe throw at him. I'd maybe say Daniel Marcos, Montel Jackson, someone like that. He could rematch. Or did he already fight Raoni Barcelos? Didn't he lose to Raoni Barcelos? He might have, but Daniel Marcos, I think, would be a fun fight for Ricky Simón to get in next. But hey, this was a fun scrap. It really got the crowd going. And from here, majority of the fights, it was one-way traffic. There was only one dud the rest of the way. Next up, we had Navajo Sterling finally getting a knockout. Oh my goodness, finally destroys Bruno Lopez to walk away victorious. Round 1 showed some great takedown defense from Bruno Lopez, going 0 for 4 for the whole fight. Navajo defended all 8 takedowns Bruno attempted and outstruck him 22-16. And then round 2 finally got going, knocked down Bruno Lopez. Was very calculated with his strikes, really showed some maturity with what he was doing, and he's been mature since he got into the UFC. Navajos, he's 28, he's from City Kickboxing, he's now going to be 9-0, and he picks up his 5th career knockout here. And honestly, Keith Pearson let this go probably about a minute too long. Navajo was just laying total strikes to him. 67-13 in round number 2, and I'd say about 50 to 55 of those came in the final finishing sequence. So domination from Navajo Sterling, excellent work for the prospect in the light heavyweight division, and he's going to improve to 4-0. in the UFC within the last year and 4 months. So excited to see what they do next with him. I don't know if they're going to give him a ranked opponent just like that. Obviously, they could. They definitely could. But if I'm the UFC, I might try and build him up some more. Maybe your Ryan Kudalabas, your Omar Sy's of the world, guys like that. You could even say, Dustin Jacoby could be a fun fight for him. But great work from Navajo Sterling, remaining undefeated. For Bruno Lopez, the Brazilian cowboy, he will now be 1-2 in the UFC. He's also gone 1-1 on the Contender Series. If he's going to get any fight next, it's going to be against a rising light heavyweight prospect making their debut off of the Contender Series and or making their UFC debut. Or maybe they'll just feed him to Abdul Rahman Yakhyayev, who it just appears to murder everyone that he takes on. So, tough loss for Bruno Lopez, but excellent win for Navajo Sterling, getting it done. Next up, women's flyweight division, and the number 12 ranked Casey O'Neill gets I think we can all agree, a very shocking knockout of Gabriela Fernandez. I mean, clips her with a beautiful head kick, then starts laying the punches on, gets her up against the cage, and knocks her out cold. Casey O'Neill in the big 2026, picking up her first victory since August of 2024. This was her first fight since August of 2024, and it is a round 1 knockout in 3 minutes. Her 4th career knockout, 6th career finish, and she's now on a little 2-fight winning streak. Fun stuff for Casey O'Neill in this one. The striking game plan for her was so well executed. I'm excited to see what they do with her next. Definitely, I'm feeling a Miranda Maverick. She's ranked number 9. A Karine Silva at 10. Dare I say Tracy Cortez at 8. There's a lot of options you can do for Casey O'Neill, but she's clearly back in the mix, and good stuff for her. For Gabriela Fernandez, this does end her little 3-fight winning streak, but they'll bring her back. She's 3-3 in the UFC, fought in some tough competitors, Jasmine Jasudavicius, Wang Kong, and now Casey O'Neill. They'll give her an opportunity, and, the women's flyweight division is always going to have fighters in need of getting opponents. I'm pretty sure Casey O'Neill is supposed to fight Stephanie Luciano. Let's just run Stephanie Luciano versus Gabriela Fernandez to see how she would fare here. But, good work for Casey O'Neill. She was the favorite. She got it done as she should have. Next up, the men's heavyweight division, and this was a weird fight. Of course, it was supposed to be Walter Walker versus Marcin Tybura, who is ranked at number 8 in the men's heavyweight division. Instead, Walter was unfortunately had to pull out due to injury, and in stepped Tyrell Fortune, a Bellator and PFL legend. And how'd this fight go down? Well, it was boring. It was dull. It was just 2 sloppy heavyweights going at it. Round 1 went to Tyrell Fortune, managed to land a takedown and get 3 minutes of control time. Round 2 went to Marcin Tybura, outstriking him 19-13 significantly. And honestly, you could have even given round 2 to Tyrell Fortune. Marcin didn't really sell me on round 2, but I could have seen the case. And then round 3 was back and forth, Marcin winning the significant strikes, 20-8. But then in the takedown game, Tyrell was winning 2 takedowns for 2 minutes of control time. So weirdly enough, we go to the scorecards, and Bruce Buffer reads the wrong winner. He reads it in favor of Marcin Tybura for the unanimous decision. Everyone leaves the cage. They interview frickin' Marcin Tybura, and then lo and behold, they make everyone come back in, and they have to re-announce Tyrell Fortune as the winner. So Tyrell Fortune, at 35 years old, has just won his UFC debut, improves to 18-3. This will be his 4th straight victory, and he's going to be ranked number 9, number 8, number 10 come Tuesday morning. So great work to Tyrell. Welcome to the UFC. Was it a thrilling victory against Marcin? Absolutely not, but you're going to throw your name into the mix, and we have a new heavyweight we can matchmake. I mean, you could throw him against Ante Delege, Talshan Teixeira, Derek Lewis, Rizvan Kuniev, Sergey Spivak. So many names that you can matchmake him with now. Exciting stuff for Tyrell Fortune. So your world's about to upgrade, Tyrell. You're about to get big money fights. Good job getting the victory, even if it wasn't the most exciting. For Marcin Tybura, this will be his 2nd straight loss. His last win did come in March of 2025, and I mean, yeah, at 40 years old, don't really know what he's still fighting for. He's going to move to 14-10 in the UFC. So our only hope is that in his next fight, his 25th fight in the UFC, he can pull out the victory. Now, who should he take on? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Just run him versus Walter Walker. I mean, that was the fight we were going to make. I think Walter coming back would be another great challenge for him to take on Marcin Tybura. No need to change anything. Make it happen. And then finally, after a multitude of fights, we finally got our first underdog victory of the night, and I did not see it coming as Lance Gibson Jr. knocks out Chase Hooper in just under 3 minutes. Pain for Chase Hooper. I feel happy for Lance Gibson Jr. He had a really great story. Really good to see him get his first UFC victory. Improves to 10-2. Good work for the former Bellator fighter. As for Chase Hooper, Lance obviously was piecing him up in the striking. It was still back and forth, but, kind of clips him, then brings up a kind of a front kick, more like a soccer kick, and just drills him right in the face. Lands some more follow-up punches, and it's kind of pouncing on him, and Blake Grice steps in, and the TKO goes to Lance Gibson Jr. He was hitting Chase with some nasty knees, though. Chase Hooper's brain was definitely mush after this fight. So, Lance Gibson, following up his short notice split decision loss to King Green, is back in the win column. Good form, and at a plus 210 underdog. I think he was the second biggest underdog to win on this card, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was the second biggest underdog to get it done. So excellent work to Lance Gibson Jr. Excited to see what we do with you next, man. The lightweight division is always going to need good fighters, and looks like Lance Gibson is pretty legit. He's 31, still got some years left to throw down, and obviously, I was going to say obviously, but not honestly, I'm just going to matchmake him with the next guy that we're going to talk about in the next fight here, but good work for Lance Gibson Jr. As for Chase Hooper, this is his second straight round 1 knockout loss, and after being on a 5-fight winning streak, it's just a fall from grace very quickly. So, Chase Hooper, gonna need a bounce-back opponent. I kind of want to gift him with someone who's, I don't want to say not as high level, but certainly not someone as good as people he's been fighting as of late. So I'm going to say he takes on Daniel Zellhuber, because Daniel Zellhuber's on a 3-fight losing streak and is in probably territory of being cut. So Daniel Zellhuber versus Chase Hooper. Let's run it up. Let's make it happen. I think it's an interesting fight for both fellows. And who do I think Lance Gibson Jr. should take on? Well, the winner of our fight of the night, Tofik Musayev and Ignacio Bahamondes. Well, the winner was Tofik Musayev. The fight of the night was between him and Ignacio Bahamondes. And this was a weird fight. All right, this was a weird fight at the end of the day. This was a bloody fight. It's one of the most bloody fights I've seen in a while. And this was just two absolute warriors going at it. But, Tofik Musayev is kind of a cheater. All right, he had a blatant headbutt, which went nowhere. He had some blatant fence grabs, which really helped him. And even when he was almost knocked out by Ignacio Bahamondes, he was blatantly grabbing the cage, all right, to freaking pull himself up. And shout out to Ignacio Bahamondes. He was throwing up submission attempts. He was trying all he could, but the biggest weakness for Ignacio was the grappling. 3 of 5 for Tofik, 7 minutes, 51 seconds control time. It proved to be his downfall in this contest. And Tofik Musayev will pick up his first UFC victory, improve to 23-6, and will remain in the UFC. And I just think him and Lance match up pretty well. I think Lance could prove a formidable opponent, especially trying to defend those takedowns. And Tofik Musayev hasn't earned himself any friends, especially after this performance here. But Ignacio, like I said, a weird fight. Kind of wish he would have gotten the nod. But this is now 2 straight losses to 2 very high-level foreign fighters. So if I'm Ignacio, I'm just back to the drawing board. I'm trying to find new people to fight, new people to throw down with. I'm trying to think of who maybe Ignacio could take on. I'm thinking, are we going to be fighting lightweight going forward for Ignacio? Is that the course of action? Does he stay at lightweight, or does he try and mix it up by... I honestly don't know, but I might honestly try and give him a layup, maybe like a Kyle Nelson, who's just knocked out by Terrence McKinney. We're literally going to talk about that fight in a second, or maybe like is Matt Frivola still in the UFC? You could try and give him a layup like that, or even Drew Dober. How about Drew Dober versus Ignacio Bahamondes? Someone's bound to get knocked down that. Drew Dober, Ignacio Bahamondes, that's the fight I want to see next. Keeping it rolling with our lightweights, Terrence McKinney makes easy work of Kyle Nelson. I cannot believe they did not give my boy Terrence a performance bonus here. Literally opens the fight, head kicks Kyle Nelson, follows him up, Kyle falls down, and he gets TKO'd in 24 seconds. This is one of the more fun Terrence McKinney finishes here, which every Terrence McKinney finish is pretty entertaining. But, he just made such easy work of Kyle Nelson here. Looked every part of a favorite in this contest, and it wasn't even close. Wasn't even close whatsoever. Terrence, 13 significant strikes to 1. That tells you about all you need to know about this fight. And hey, shout out Terrence, bouncing back from his decision loss or his round 1 submission loss to Chris Duncan. And how well has that aged for Terrence? The guy that he last lost to is now main eventing against Renato Moicano. And besides that, you're 3-1 in your last 4. And he's been as entertaining as can be so far in the UFC. He's 8-5, and his round 1 finishing streak just lives on, continues to get better. So what do we do with Mr. Terrence here? I don't know. You got a lot of options of what you can do with this guy. I think it's gonna vary based on the degree of opponent you want him to take on. But Mike Davis, I think could be a very challenging option for him. I could even see a Thiago Moises, a Jared Gordon, a Rafa Garcia, Vink Pichel. I'm just throwing out names. I mean, Terrence McKinney is, still somewhat young. He's 31, so he's approaching that time where you really need to dial it up and get some wins. But hey, this is where you start. 24-second knockout. Keep it rolling, Terrence. You ended the prelims with a banger. Actually, I think he opened the main card with a bang is what it was. And I'll tell you who else who kept it going was Yusri Belgori, who humbles Mansour Abdulmalik, becoming the first man to defeat him, as we have another underdog winning in the plus 110 Yusri Belgori. It's safe to say Yusri Belgori is back. He's legit, and I will have to be rooting for him from here on out. Just utterly pieced up Mansour Abdulmalik. Obviously, Mansour had the one-punch power, but that can only get you so far. 94 significant strikes to 16, 107 total strikes to 16. Mansour lands 3 takedowns. It is all too little, too late. Drops Mansour in round 2. No idea how Beltran didn't step in to shut it down, but Mansour makes it to round 3. And he's just kind of floating all around. I mean, he's just throwing for the fences, and he is just landing nowhere, and eventually he just gets hit with some knees and kind of just stumbles down, and the ref's like, this is game over. Mansour, you're done. Yusri TKO. His 8th career knockout, his 5th straight win, and man, he's coming from the Teixeira camp, training with Pereira and Glover up in Connecticut, and it's doing wonders for him. 2-0 in the UFC, both round 3 knockouts, and even his Contender Series victory on Season 8 was a round 3 knockout. Very interesting when you look at it like that. So for Yusri, you're going to get a lot of options at middleweight, a lot of fun stuff. People are already saying he should just fight Izzy next, and I don't hate that. I just don't see it being like a logical next option for him, but I could definitely see them maybe throwing him a bone and, going with that option. We'll have to see. But I also think maybe a fight with someone like Shaul Magomedov could be fun. Someone like, is Armin Petrosyan? They might have cut Armin Petrosyan by now, but that would be a fun fight. Bruno Ferreira, Marvin Vettori. There's a lot of good options you can do with Yusri Belgori, but hey, getting a round 3 knockout here, dominant work. Happy for the guy. For Mansour Abdulmalik, first career loss. First career loss is to a former kickboxing world champion. It is nothing to hold your head low about, but certainly there's a skill gap, and Mansour is just not yet there. He's 28, so he's got at least 3 to 4 years to still improve and level it up. But for the time being, there's a certain skill level he should be fighting. And, when I'm trying to think of guys like that, you have Azamat Bekov taking on Tresean Gore. I think whoever wins that, literally is a match made in heaven for Mansour Abdulmalik. So shout out to Yusri. You're doing good. And for Mansour, I'm sure he'll bounce back, my guy. Then, for most violent knockout of the night comes with Larian Douglas and Julian Erosa. This would have been probably my biggest lock of the evening. Larian Douglas was an absolute killer on the Contender Series, and he massacres Julian Erosa in 3 minutes and 33 seconds. I mean, this was just brutal. I mean, just setting it up, and it was like he had a red dot on Julian's forehead, and every punch he landed just took it out of him. And, the finishing sequence is he dropped him for a second time, and as he's getting up, he's just clipping him with uppercuts against the cage. I mean, literally picture you're on your knees, just kind of leaning back. That is Julian Erosa up against the cage, and he's just getting eaten uppercuts to the face. Brutal, violent. Larian Douglas, you're going to do wonders in the UFC. That is now 2 wins. His last 2 fights, he's landed a total of 4 knockdowns, both of them violent knockouts. And yeah, Larian Douglas is legit. 6th straight win, 8th career knockout, 10th finish of his 14 victories. Larian, you're an absolute beauty, and I don't know what to do with him because I have high expectations for him now at featherweight. I know we can't just throw him in there with the best of the best, but can we? can we do that? I don't know. I don't know what we can do, but, there's guys out there like Morgan Cherie. There's guys out there like Nate Landry and Cum Swanson, Doohoo Choi, Bill Aljeo, if he's still in the UFC. I mean, there is just a plethora of options for Larry Douglas, and whoever he fights next, you best bet I'm going to be riding with Larry Douglas because that boy is nasty, and he puts the fire in California. I don't know what that means, but you get what I'm saying. They have fires in California. He's from California. He brings the flame to them. Keeping it rolling, as this was actually, fun fact, the first main card where every fight ended in a finish since 2022, where it was UFC Vegas. I think it was Jamal Hill versus Thiago Santos. I don't know which Vegas it was, but I remember watching that card. Very good card. Following that up, you had Michael Chiesa's retirement fight against Nico Price, and people are going to say this was rigged. I just think Nico Price isn't good, all right? Because quite literally, Michael Chiesa, did it even land a takedown? Did it even count as a takedown? I don't know, but he just kind of takes the back of Nico Price and locks in a rear naked choke. And it's game over. 1 minute and 3 seconds is all it takes. It ended so quickly, you're kind of like, oh, that's it? This ended pretty prematurely, but I just think it was the skill gap between both of these guys. And when we talk about what's next for both of them, well, they both retired, so game over. Michael Chiesa gets to retire in his home state, his home city, on a 4-fight winning streak. And how about that? He's going to end his career finishing Tony Ferguson, finishing Max Griffin, finishing Nico Price, and he retired Cord McGee while he was at it. So not a bad run to the career of Michael Chiesa, going out with a submission victory and getting his 13th career one at that. So good work to Chiesa. You had yourself a legendary career, my man. I mean, you won the Ultimate Fighter back in 2012. He actually won a main event against, Neil Magny. He had good fights against Kevin Hall and Sean Brady, Vicente Luque, Anthony Pettis, Kevin Lee, fought a bunch of tough guys, and even fought Jorge Masvidal. You had a good career, Michael Chiesa. Nothing to shame yourself about. 38 years old, and he's wrapping it up. As for Nico Price, he'll end his UFC run on a 4-fight losing streak, actually going 1-6 in his last 7 fights to end his UFC run, and he will finish with, just one of the worst records I've seen in the UFC, but, he fought some dogs. He fought Prime Alan Joban. He fought Vicente Luque, Randy Brown. He fought Tim Means, Jeff Neal, James Vick, Donald Cerrone, Michelle Pereira, Robbie Lawler, all right? A lot of fun stuff for Nico Price, but at 36, so much damage. Very glad he's hanging it up. So a little retirement fight to round out the career for both these guys. And Michael Chiesa gets the Hollywood ending, as he will get the storybook ending, the fairy tale ending that they say, as he walks away with a rear naked chokehold. Then we got on to the co-main event and the most violent women's finish of all time, and maybe the greatest women's finish of all time. I kid you not. Certainly my favorite finish of the year, even though I didn't predict it happening. Alexa Grasso knocks out / submits Maycee Barber. They officially have ruled it as a knockout, but man, this was violent. And Grasso is going to resume her position at number 3 in the women's flyweight division. Put her at number 2, for goodness sakes. She is as legit as they come. So essentially how this, played out was, these two are kind of just going at it pretty casual. It's only like 12 significant strikes to 5. Grasso's getting a bit more, but it's going back and forth. And then Grasso just lands a perfect straight, and it literally lands the straight, and down goes Maycee Barber. She literally kind of gets spun around, literally is just about knocked out. And instead of going for a punch, Alexa Grasso locks in the tightest rear naked chokehold I've seen someone lock in. Not only did she lock it in so quickly, she locked it in super tight. It was so brutal. I couldn't believe it. And literally, obviously, Mike Beltran pulls Alexa Grasso off of her. Maycee Barber was out of it. Maycee Barber then grapples for Mike Beltran's leg. Mike Beltran's like, the fight is over. And then she just lays there, eyes open, breathing heavy, looking dead on the mat. This was, wow. What a finish for Alexa Grasso. If I never thought she'd be able to top her Valentina Shevchenko shocking upset finish, that's a great title win for her. In terms of finish, this is her greatest finish of all time. This will only be her 5th career knockout. Crazy enough, Alexa Grasso hasn't gotten a knockout win in the UFC. She hasn't gotten a knockout win in a decade, and she just got it here in a massive fight for her. Her first win in 3 years, too. Might add, much needed for Alexa Grasso. So, what's next for her? She's ranked at number 3. Manon Fiorot's sitting there at number 2. Aaron Blanchfield's sitting there at number 4. One of those two is what you do there. Because goodness me, we're not having her rematch Valentina Shevchenko again. That's not happening. You can fight Manon Fiorot or Erin Blanchfield. In my opinion, her versus Manon Fiorot is the fight to make. Now, as for Maycee Barber, she's going to be ranked number 5. Okay, she's going to be ranked number 5. Come the rankings update, she'll remain there. And this ends her 7-fight winning streak, which sucks. And man, I don't know what to do with her. She's 27. She's been dealing with a lot of medical conditions. After this, she's still 10-3 in the UFC. It's not like she's bad, but I just don't know who we have her fight. Do we have her fight Tracy Cortez? Do we have her fight Wayne Kong? Honestly, Casey O'Neill or Wayne Kong feel like the only correct options for who she can fight. So, tough luck for Maycee Barber in this one, but Alexa Grasso, you murder menacing machine. That was one of the best finishes I've seen in a very long time. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we got into our main event, the last style bender. Israel Adesanya taking on Joe Body Bags Pyfer. And wow, this was a entertaining fight. This was a good main event, but Joe Pyfer gets it done again. TKOs Israel Adesanya in round number 2, and he will go from being ranked number 14 to being ranked number 4. What a jump. Absolutely crazy. Tail of this fight, round 1, Izzy pieced up Joe. 24-9, had the edge on the feet. Joe ends the fight landing a takedown, which was nice. Some decent ground and pound, but that was that. Round 2, they're doing some more striking. They're engaging more. And then we get into the sequence where Israel is outstriking Joe Pyfer. And then I don't even know how it happened, but he just lost his mojo. Lost his flow. It just wasn't working. And Joe Pyfer manages to land a takedown, get into full mount, and he was trying to submit Izzy there for a bit, but Izzy was able to escape. But Joe just would not get off his back and TKOs him into oblivion. 43 significant strikes to 21, or total strikes, I should say. And Joe Pyfer knocks out Israel Adesanya in round number 2. Correctly, as we predicted. We literally said round 2. I thought it'd be a straight-out knockout, but no, just some vicious ground and pound. Dude, just imagine your boy's on top of your back. He's landing punches to the back of your head. There's no way you can get up. Just brutal. And Israel Adesanya will now suffer his, 4th straight defeat. Oh, my gosh. And Joe Pyfer, the underdog, gets it done. But as he was doing so good, he was entering the flow state, and then Joe Pyfer just disrupted him and got it done. The 10th career knockout for Joe Pyfer in his career. Impressive work. And of his little 4-fight winning streak, 3 of them have been performance of the night finishes. Excellent work for Joey P. And as for Israel, what do we do with him? 1-5 in his last 6. Ugh, gosh. People are saying Yusri Balgori. There's an option you could do. Israel said he's not going to hang it up. He's not going to retire, and I think he should. You're 36. You have nothing left to be fighting for. I think he's just trying to end his career on a win. And honestly, I want to do something to give the fan service, to complete a trilogy. Let's have Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya. Now, I don't think it's going to happen because I think he's moving up in weight, but it would be so much fun. You could do Rainier Ritter, Israel Adesanya. That could be a fun option, but they might even end up doing Christian Leroy Duncan versus Israel Adesanya. They might, just to keep feeding prospects at him. But Israel, you legend, just not your day. As for Joe Pyfer, he's going from one bracket of fighters to take on to just a whole new array. You're now in a world where you're taking on Kyle Barallo, or you're taking on Anthony Hernandez. You're taking on Brendan Allen. You are now taking on the Dricus du Plessis, Nasruddin Imavovs of the world. That is the level of competition Joe Pyfer has taken on. And it's crazy to think, back in 2022, he was just a Contender Series guy. And less than 4 years, he has cemented himself as a main event guy. And now he's in a whole different echelon. 60-3 professionally. Good job to the Pennsylvania native, Joe Pyfer. So if I could choose at least one opponent who I think he should face next, it's probably Kyle Barallo, in my honest opinion. So UFC Seattle was an absolute success. It was so much fun. I had a blast watching it. And yeah, of the 12 fights we had on this card, only 4 of them went to a decision. You can't beat that. 8 finishes. I absolutely love it. For the fights we predicted incorrectly, Tofik Musayev, I think, cheated to his way to victory. I think that's BS. Lance Gibson Jr. is legit, and Chase Hooper is kind of on the way down, which sucks. Mansour Abdul-Malik was over his head, taking on Yusri Balgori, and Alexa Grasso is nowhere near done as she destroys Maycee Barber. So UFC Seattle will put you in the books, and we'll look ahead to UFC Vegas 115, I want to say. It's Chris Duncan versus Renato Moicano. Very random main event. I mean, we have just an array of random fights that have been made for main events. But also on this card, you get to see the returns of Abdul Rahman Yakhyaev, Ethan Ewing, the debut of Tommy McMillan. You're going to get to see Jose Delano making his debut. You're going to get to see the return of Asma Bekov, Alice Berra. A lot of interesting stuff on this card. But in terms of the rest of this, guys, we are all done. UFC Seattle is in the books, and we just push on forward. That's what we do. That's what you and me do, guys. We just keep on keeping on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back later in the week for your UFC Vegas 115 predictions and to discuss the final 2 to 3 games of March Madness. With that, I bid you adieu. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll catch you next time on the Surprise Jab Podcast.